As authors, it's incredibly important that we are getting quoted in magazines, in articles, in websites, that we are getting featured so that people can see our faces, we get that exposure, people find out who we are and the books that we write, which can then lead to more book sales. So being represented out in public is incredibly important. And we love to do a good interview, but it's not just about doing interviews. There was a very strong time when people would come do blog interviews, live stream interviews, podcast interviews, and that's kind of fallen by the wayside these days. We don't see a ton of interviews because we have such a saturated market with it. So you might still get some interviews just about you, but chances are people are not going to be reading articles just about you or watching videos just about you unless they're already your fans. So in order to get people to pay attention to us who don't know us yet, we have to show up in other places. We need to be in big magazines and articles and websites, and sometimes it's specific to our books, but more often it's specific to publishing or specific to the other things that we talk about or the topics and tropes within the books that we are writing. We have a great opportunity as authors to show up, yes, to represent our books and specifically hone in and sell those books, but we also have this great ability to talk about the tropes or the things that we're going to be talking about, the niches we're going to be talking about inside of our stories, and we can really get into a deep market with those side things. So one of my books, I write about a character that has allergies. I could do interviews, I could do questions, I could do conversations on those. I also write things in the mermaid world. I could get in front of a lot of different media because they talk a lot about the professional mermaid community. I could have conversations on those. All of these things are tangential to the books that I have written, but are not necessarily me selling my book or selling author life or publishing things. So I can get into a lot of spaces very easily by talking about the things that I am writing about, the things that I'm doing, the things that I'm experiencing, and the other things I'm doing in my life, because I'm not just an author. I do a lot of education in a lot of different spaces. So with that in mind, you should be actively looking for places that you can be represented in. However, the world has changed just a little bit in how this is going to work, and it actually makes it way easier for you. So here is the deal. When it comes to people who are writing articles, they are going to need sources to quote inside of their articles or whatever it is that they're writing. These people used to look for industry leaders. They would look for people who were actively on pedestals and on platforms speaking on these different topics that they were going to be writing on. They're looking for people who are doing really well. So they would come to me because I was a best-selling author, because I was speaking on stages across the country, because I was putting out a ton of content on social media and on the internet. I was doing really well with all of these different things, and I blew up on TikTok. So people would come to me because I was very clearly an expert in the spaces that I work in. But when it comes to going to a professional and knocking on their digital door and saying, hey, we're doing an article, we need a quote, would you be willing to do that? Then those people have to wait and hope that I give a good quote and hope that I turn it in on time, because everything gets held up in the writing process if they're waiting for somebody to do the work and get it back to them. It slows things down. And so they've smartened up. They found a new way to do this. This has happened to me so many times over the last 2 years, and it's happening to a lot of people as well. This is a really good opportunity for you to leverage this. So here's the deal. Instead of coming to someone, knocking on their door and waiting around, now these people are looking for sources that are already speaking on this topic, and they're going to their YouTube channels, their TikToks, and their Instagrams, and they're watching videos on these people speak on these topics and pulling lines from what they've said. So now they come to my YouTube channel and my TikTok and my Instagram, and they are listening to my content. And if they find a line or two or a paragraph that works really well, they're typing it up and using it in their article and contributing that to me. And sometimes they tell me in advance. Sometimes they knock on my door and say, hey, we published this article. We quoted you in it, just letting you know. And sometimes they come and say, hey, we've got this article. We're quoting you from this video. Would you expand upon it? So you have the opportunity to be quoted without knowing it. Sometimes my Google alerts just ping and tell me I've been quoted somewhere. I'll go over and look at this article that I've never heard of from People magazine, true story, and they've quoted me in it and my name's attached to it. So the Google alerts let me know. And I'll put a video on Google alerts down below for you. And so I just randomly find out, but sometimes they'll come to me and say, hey, we're writing this. We want to quote you in this. Cool. Can you expand on this? Or sometimes they'll say, hey, listen, we published this. We quoted you in it. Would you add a little bit more? And they'll go and add in things after the fact. So if you have content that then has sound bites in it or nuggets that people can be using, that is going to allow them to listen and understand you know what you're talking about, but also grab lines that are already done. You've already said it. It's a direct quote from you. They're just quoting you again. And now they don't have to wait for you to get back to them a day, a week, a month, however long it's going to take. They have that content and they can immediately move forward with their articles. As someone who also writes articles for different companies, that makes my life a lot easier. If I'm not having to wait around for somebody to eventually answer some questions, if I can see that they've already done this and spoken on this and I can just directly quote them from their YouTube video, then I can just continue to write my article. That makes it so much more time effective for me as a writer. So for you as an author, you need to be putting out content with sound bites in it, and you need to front load it. Because the things that are most important, the things that are quotable on whatever topic you're discussing, if they're at the beginning, people are likely to listen and they don't have to go through the entire thing. So for example, my YouTube videos tend to be more than a few seconds long. My YouTube videos tend to be like 7, 8 to 15-ish minutes. I try to keep it right around there. And people don't necessarily want to listen to a 15-minute video. But if I front load that with a really good knowledge up front, now they can listen to 60 seconds, 120 seconds of my video and get what they need and get out. That means that they don't have to sit through the entire thing. They can move forward with it, but it also gives them a really good peace of mind that I know what I'm talking about. I'm clearly on top of my game with this stuff. I'm clearly a leader in this space, and they can get well-spoken words that they can then quote. So front load your TikToks and front load your YouTube videos so that people can get those sound bites and easily quote you. Now, again, sometimes they're going to tell you, sometimes they're not going to tell you. Sometimes they're going to ask for more, sometimes they're not going to ask for more. Sometimes you're just going to find out about it by accident, and sometimes they're going to bring you into the process. And then it depends on what you want and how you want to do it and how you want to deal with all of those things. So it's entirely up to you how you want to manage and maintain that. If you don't want people quoting you, put something in your description. Do not quote without permission or whatever. But for most of us, it's really important to make sure we're getting quoted as many places as possible. And then if somebody twists your words or does something inappropriate, you can of course have them take it down. You can do whatever you need to do, get your lawyers involved if you absolutely need to, but it probably won't come to that. And some of these places you can actually get paid for it. Send them invoices if they're quoting you and using your content, depending, of course, on how they are going to be doing that. So be mindful of those things, but making sure that you're showing up in People magazine and on big fancy websites and in big articles is really important. You can then use it to market yourself. You can use it to get seen more. If they're not, if they quote you and they don't link to your author website or something, you can make sure that they do that. You can do a lot with this. It's very, very helpful to make sure that you're getting out there and you're getting seen and you're getting all of those credentials and those credits that you can then toss on your website, which we've talked about before, to help market you even better. So create content, make sure it's on topics related to your books, or, you can talk about your books, but nobody's coming to you for stuff about your books, for articles. So talk about the different topics, the things that are connected to what you're writing about, and then lean in heavily on that again and again and again and again on content, because if it's just a one-off piece of content, they're less likely to use that. If you talk on the same topics again and again and again to position yourself as an expert in them, that is going to be much more helpful to you and to getting those quotes inside of those big articles. Drop your questions down below. I have tons of episodes in our marketing playlist about how you can get quoted, how you can be doing these interviews, how you can reach out to these different companies, all of those things in the playlist. You can check it out. There's hundreds of episodes here on the channel to help you navigate this so that you can level up your marketing, so you can make more money as an author, so you can live your best author life and those author dreams without the stress and overwhelm and without having to constantly be on the hunt for money to survive, because we know it's a hard little life as an author for some people. We want to make sure that you are doing the best that you possibly can. So drop the questions and we'll see you in tomorrow's episode.